a second. Hi, my name is Karan Kapoor, and I am a freelance UI and UX designer. I used to work at a company before, but I quit my job to kind of start this, and this is one of my new ventures. So I started learning Figma about 2 months ago, and I've also used Adobe XD and Sketch, which are kind of the competitors. So this is this is the new software that I'm at for the UI and UX design. So yeah, I'd be turning off my video now. So I you'd be able to see my screen, and then I'll walk you through everything that I covered in the last session, a recap, basic recap, and then we'll continue for UI UX design. All right. So let's get started. So let me just show you from the very start. I'm logged. So this is how it would look like for a first time user. And since I'm already logged in, I would click on login. There's an issue here. Never mind. Just a second. The website. I don't know why it is not letting me log in. So let me show you how it would look like for a first time user when after you log in. So this is our homepage. This is what you see when you kind of start with Figma. And this is where you create a new file, and this is where you import a new file from Sketch. Currently, it only supports Sketch, but in the later or the next versions, it would also support importing from other softwares like the VXT. So this is one of the files that I have created. So so this is the event file. Okay, so first of all, welcome to the session. And the topics that we have for today are, first of all, we'll cover colors. So let's move on to that immediately, right? So as you can see that I'm dragging on the screen. So this is by the shortcut. I'm holding down the space bar and then dragging with the mouse. All right. So first things first. So these boxes that you see, these are all rectangles, which can be accessed by the shortcut R. If I click on the shortcut R and draw a rectangle here, and if I click here on fill, I would be able to see I'd be able to pick a color. So similarly, I have picked a color for all of these boxes. So now, whenever you are starting on a UI project, so the best practice is to define this color or to name this color. Just like I've named this color gray. I'll show you how it matters or how it will help you in the design process. So if I click on this button, create a style, and I name this color. So let me name it orange. All right. And now if I click on this box and I pick the color orange, and if I click on this box and I pick the eyedropper tool, which is you can replicate the color from another colored object. So if I pick the color from here, so these are two approaches to tackle color. So if I have defined this color as orange and pick the color orange from the fill section, so every time I edit this color, which is this icon, every time I edit this color, it would edit all the places that I have picked up orange color at or used this orange color. Whereas this one, this is a manual entry of the color. So this wouldn't be edited per se. So this is very beneficial if you're working on large files. So these are called color styles. So if I click on this and then I add it to styles, let's say I name it purple, and if I click on this rectangle and I click the eye button and pick this color from there, so the color would be manually entered. And if I change the purple color from here, it would only change where I have chosen the purple color, the instance that I've defined. So it would only change over here and not here, since this is manually picked. And now if I click on this and choose this color, and if I edit this color now, all the places that this color is used at would be edited simultaneously. Okay, so this is a very brief introduction. I will kind of include all of these colors, fonts in the later parts. So let's move on to the next part now. So this was the color styles. So let's move on to the styles, font now. So the second topic is font. So wait a second. So this is, so there are a few properties about fonts that you should know about before starting a project. So one of the basic properties would be, and something that everyone would know, is the name of the font. So as you might have seen that when you're editing a Word document or creating any Word file, you you kind of see these names: Times New Roman, Calibri, or Arial. So these are some of the very common fonts. So one of the properties of fonts is name. The next property is weight. So the font that I've used here is Open Sans. So it is available in this menu, which can be accessed from the right hand side. This is a drop down where you can access multiple fonts. So the next property would be weight. So the weight of this Open Sans font are, so this one is in light. So this is the light weight. This one is in regular. This is the regular weight. The next one is in semi-bold. This is the semi-bold weight, and so on and so forth. Different fonts might use different terminologies, such as the bold might be black for some fonts, and semi-bold might be medium for some other fonts. All right. So this earlier the only categories were regular and bold. So the places that regular and bold didn't fit, so these middle categories were generated from there. All right. The next property of font, and this is a technical term, it would be kerning. So kerning is the spacing between the letters. It is the relative spacing between the letters. So there's a very prevalent joke in the design field that if the kerning is not enough, it would look like kerming. So Kaming. So if I zoom out, it would seem like I've written Kaming instead of kerning, and it can be adjusted from this. So 14.5 minus 14.5 means minus 14.5% of the font size. So if I adjust this to say 15%, you can see the letters are getting spaced even further. So the spacing is minus 1.5 on this, and with this it is minus 5.5, and with this it is 92.5. So if I edit this to 100%, the spacing between each character would be the size of the font, and you can verify that by any means. So the next point would be line height. So line height is the height of the line that we have typed. So it would be the distance between the top edge and the bottom edge of the font that we have typed. So for example, if I press control and click on this, since this is a group, so the height of this would be 60 pixels. So as you can see, the size of the font is 28, and then I have chosen the line height, which you can access here, which would be 60. So if I draw a rectangle here with the shortcut R and kind of draw it from top to bottom. So you can see that the height of this rectangle here is 60 pixels. So the font size is different, and the line height that you give is the total space or the total height that this font occupies with the line height. So if I edit this line height to be 32, so the height of this box, or the box that the font is placed in, would be 32. And you can verify that by kind of dragging this to the top of the box and to the bottom of the box. So as you can see, the height is 32 here. So this is another property of fonts, um, which is the line height. All right, and let me show you another example. If there are multiple lines, and if you kind of draw a line below the text that you have typed, as in the notebooks that we used to use, and the second line that we have drawn, so the height between these lines would be the line height. So for example, the font size is 28 here, and the line height I have chosen is 50. So if I draw a rectangle between these two lines, which is the width, which is the height of this bar. So if I draw a rectangle, so this would amount, or this would be equal to the spacing between these two lines. If you can't see it, then I'll change the color. So this is the line of the first, this is the baseline of the first line, this is the baseline of the second line, and the space between them is 50, which is our line height over here. All right, and the second and the last thing that you should know about fonts is, or paragraph, when you're typing paragraphs, there's another term, there's a technical term, leading or paragraph spacing. So you might wonder what is different between line height and paragraph spacing. So so this is an example demonstration. So this, so if you see that the font size here is 28 and the line height is 70. So the line height is 70, as you can see with the height of this bar that I've created. Let me just verify that for you. If I create a rectangle here, the size of this rectangle would be 70, which would be the line height. And if I create another rectangle, I'm duplicating it by holding on Alt and dragging it with my mouse. So the line height is 70, and the distance between these two, which you can see from the right hand side by clicking on the first one and then holding down the shift key and clicking on the second one. So the distance between these two lines, this is the additional distance between the lines. So if you can see that in this paragraph, I have set the additional distance of the paragraph spacing to be 28, which you can verify from this. If I click on this and I hold down my Alt key and move on to this box, so the distance between these would be 28. So this is the additional distance after the line height between in between the paragraph lines. So these are some of the basic terms that you would want to know about fonts before starting out. And one of the most important properties of font is the font type. If there is any question, just feel free to stop me there, and I'll elaborate on that point. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So next property would be the font type. So font type is one of the most important and one of the most recognizable properties of fonts. So as you can see here, the most common type of fonts are sans serif fonts. So a sans serif font does not have any kind of extension around the letters. So if you see the letter S, it is a pointed letter from the start to the end. All right. So Roboto is one of the most popular and most basic fonts that is used in multimedia. So now moving on to the next font, which will be Times New Roman. This is a sans serif font. So it has an extension or curve to the letters. So for example, if you see the letter F, instead of ending in a straight line, it has extensions. So this is called a sans serif font. And these extensions around after the letters are called serifs. All right. So moving on to the next font are the Roboto mono fonts. So one of the special properties about mono fonts is that they are used heavily in coding or kind of technical technical or software based products. So the spacing between the font the letters is kind of different from the two types of fonts that we have seen before. So these these are known as mono fonts because the spacing between them is even. If you get a chance to verify, then the spacing between P and L is the same as spacing between L and E, which is not the case for this sans serif or the serif fonts. All right. And the last type of fonts are slab fonts. So this is the Roboto slab font. So if you can see that there's a slab kind of a thing. Slab is something that an object rests on. So this is called a slab right here. So uh, is it visible to everyone?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, okay. So this is a slab that the letter rests on. So these are slab fonts. So these are used in different products and to convey different meanings for products. For example, these fonts, serif fonts, are used heavily in the print media, and these fonts are very prevalent and used all around us. So this site, the Figma site that you see, is all made up of serif fonts. All right. And these fonts are basically used in software-based products, and these slab fonts are used to convey a boldness or a strong feeling of the product. All right. So now moving on to a few of the shortcuts. So these are a few shortcuts that are really important. I will demonstrate these one by one. All right. So let me create an art frame. So if you are new to Figma, a frame is a canvas which holds layers or objects. So if I click on the shortcut A, and this option menu would appear on the right hand side. It would allow me to choose from a phone frame, a tablet frame, a desktop frame, or a social media frame. So I would choose an Instagram store post frame. So this is a frame. I can click on it and drag it.
Okay,
Right.
so the poster you made, I mean, you sent over Instagram was made using Figma.
Yeah, I all of it is made using Figma. So
Okay.
I would demonstrate some of the shortcuts that can help you kind of get started with poster design or UI UX design. All right. So
Okay.
the first shortcut is, so this is a group. All right. So a group is collection of layers. I would demonstrate that here. So if I click on the shortcut R, that would mean I'm clicking on a rectangle. I'm picking a rectangle. So if I hold down my shift key and drag it with my mouse on one of the sides, it would increase evenly. So it is not a square, it is a rectangle tool. So if I hold down shift, it would only create a square, and till the time I have held the shift key, it would continue to be a square. As soon as I leave the shift key, it would again deform into a square or rectangle, sorry. So this is a rectangle. And if you want to see the spacing from the top and the left side, hold down the Alt key, click on the shape, and then hover outside the shape so that you can see how much it is spaced from the outer boundaries. All right. So now I am clicking on the fill and choosing a color. All right. So this is the left side panel is to show what the object name is or what the frame name is, and the right side panel is the properties of the object. So for example, the height of the object is 155 and the width is 271. So one of the shortcuts is, if you hold down the control or the command key and you click on the down arrow, so it would increase or nudge the height by 1 pixel. And if you hold down the control command key or control key and shift key, and then you press down the down arrow, it would, just a second, it would increase the height in steps. All right. So I have set the step size to 8. That is why it is increasing in the steps of 8. And if you want to adjust the step size, you can go on to this menu here and click and search for nudge amount. All right. So the small nudge is when you hold down the shift control key or the command key and hit the down arrow or the right arrow once. So if I change this small nudge to 100 and the big nudge to 200, so if I hold down the command key or the control key and then hit the down arrow, observe how much the height would increase. So right now it is 255. I am holding down the control or the command key and clicking on the down arrow now. So it would increase to 355. So this is a preference that you can edit from here, the nudge amount. So usually the small nudge amount is 1 and the big nudge amount is 10. So let me change it to that. So now if I press the command key or the control key and press the down arrow, then this would increase by 1. And if I hold down the shift key with the control key and then hit down the down arrow, it would increase in by 10 pixels. All right. And this was for increasing the height. And just a second. Now, if I want to decrease the height, then I would hold down the command or the control key and then hit the up arrow. So this would decrease the height by 1 pixel if I'm holding down only the control key. And if I hold down the shift control and the shift key and then click on the up arrow, it would decrease by 10. So this is a preference that you can edit from here. And now if I want to change the width of this rectangle, I would hold down the command or the control key and then hit the right arrow, which would increase the width by 1 pixel. And if I hold down the command or the control and the shift key, it would increase by 10 pixels every time I hit the right arrow. So one of the things that you should know is this top edge and the left edge remain fixed. So everything that the width and height only decrease and increase from here or from here when you're using the shortcut. So now if I use control key, shift key, and then hit the right arrow, it would increase by 10 pixels. And if I hold down the left key with control and shift, it would decrease by 10 pixels. All right. So this is one of the basics of of a shape or a frame. So similarly, if I select this frame and I do the same operation of control and down arrow, it would increase by 1. And if I hold down the shift now and click on the down arrow, it would increase by 10. And similarly with width, control and right arrow increase by 1 pixel. And if I hold down control, shift, and then the right arrow, it would increase by 10 every time I hit it. All right.
So I have a question here.
Okay.
So I think you mentioned if I just press shift and then try to move that entity.
No. Control is what is important here. Control
But
should always be pressed.
Mhm. But if
Shift
I'm
is
just
an
doing
additional.
shift, so if I'm just doing shift, I think it's changing the axis by 10.
Yeah. Shift. If you only hold down shift, then it
Yeah,
is moving. It is only moving in the position. So if I
right.
can demonstrate that. So
So
this
can we
point.
do that in one numbers, like because it is doing it in the 10 spaces, but not in one.
Okay. So only if you only hit the arrow without pressing shift, it would move in multiples of 1.
Okay, without shift. Okay, understood.
Okay,
Thanks.
so one of the things that I would like to tell here, guys, that is the point here, left hand side corner. This point is the 0 by 0 in a graph. So let me demonstrate this 0 by 0. All right. So consider this 0 by 0 in a graph. And if I hold down the shape and align the corner here, so the position of this in x and y axis would be 0 and 0. So now if I move it to the right, the X would change. And if I move it below, the Y would change. So consider this 0 by 0 point, and everything and every place that you move it would be referenced from here. All right. So these are some of the shortcuts that are used to increase and decrease the height and width. So we have covered it up until here. And since our frame name is Instagram post 11, so we can uh, and everything inside an artboard is called a layer or a group. So this rectangle 19 is its name. It's a layer. So if I duplicate it by clicking on Control C or Command C and Command V, it is duplicated, but on the same points. So if I move it here now, these are two separate layers. All right. And if I click on this shape and move it above the shape and reduce its size. All right, and change its color. All right, so this is a layer which is above this layer. The black rectangle is above the red rectangle. So if I want to move the black rectangle below the red rectangle, I would hold down the control or the command key and then click on the left bracket. So this, as you can see on the left hand side, that the rectangle 20 was above the rectangle 19, and now that I have pressed the now that I have wait a second, and now that I have pressed control or command and back left bracket key, it has moved down. And now if I select it from the left hand side and click on the right bracket, it will move up. So this is something that something to keep in mind, so that you don't always come here and manually move it up or down. And one of the other things is that if we have multiple shapes or layers, so let me change the color of this to distinguish. And we have this. So currently this is on the top, and these two rectangles are below this. So if I want to move this rectangle here below all the layers, so I would click on Control or Command and the Shift key, and then click on the left bracket key. So it will move below or to the bottom. All right. So this is a quick tip. And if I select all the three layers by making a selection around them, and if I click on Control or Command and then click on G, it would create a group. So the advantage of a group is that all the three shapes or layers can be moved all at once instead of being moved separately. All right. So this is a shortcut, and if you want to ungroup these three layers, you just hold down Control or Command, then Shift, and then click on G. So these are ungrouped now. One more shortcut that you would use a lot is renaming a layer or a frame. So if you click on this frame and you click on Control and then you click on R, it would open the renaming window. So if I rename it to Figma Basic. So this is the name of my frame or the artboard. So this helps in the way that I can search for it. I think not from here, but it is easier to search from the window here. All right. So this is one of the shortcuts. Now moving on to the next shortcut. Just a second. All right. So we have covered the shortcuts up till here, and now let's move on to lock and unlock shortcut. So if I want that I only want to work with these two layers and not this layer, so I can lock this layer either from here by clicking on the lock icon, and if I click on it again, it would unlock. So what locking and unlocking means is if I lock it, the shortcut is Control or Command and Shift, then L. So if I lock it, then I wouldn't be able to move this shape on this frame. I would only be able to move the other shapes that I have on this frame. So this helps in the fact that you have finalized the shape and you want to only work on the other shapes, or you have finalized the spacing or the position of the shape and you only want to move other layers or shapes now. All right. So this is one of the shortcuts. And if you want to unlock the layer, you simply click on this layer name here, and then you click on unlock. And the same Control and R or Command or R shortcut works with this layer as well. If you click on Control and R, you can rename this layer to red rectangle, so that it is easier to look for when you are revisiting it. And if I choose these two and I group them by Control and G, I can also rename the group by Control and R and group black and red. So it is easier to look for when I'm revisiting this project. And I can do the same with the group. I can unlock it or lock it. And one of the other properties is the visibility. So this eye icon that you see here, it is to toggle visibility. If I click on it, the layer would be invisible. It would be it wouldn't even be selectable, but it would be there. So if you have multiple color options and you only want to work on this and not on this, so you can toggle its visibility on and off. So this is one of the shortcuts. So the shortcut for this is Command Shift and H. So H for hide. So you can toggle it, the visibility from Command Shift and or Control Shift and H. So these are some of the shortcuts. And yeah, so the next shortcut would be to reduce its opacity. So the opacity of a group or a layer. So let me draw. So let me click on this red rectangle, Command Shift H, so that it is visible again. And if I want to toggle the opacity, this is the opacity. So opacity is the amount of visibility that this layer has. So it is 100% visible right now. If I want to reduce the opacity, it would only be 20% visible now. So one of the shortcuts or the easy shortcuts with this is if you click on any layer or a group, and if you click on any number, so if you click on 1, it would reduce the opacity to 10. And if you click on 3, it would reduce the opacity to 30. And if you click on two numbers simultaneously or very fast, it would change it to that particular number. So say I click on 3 and 2, it would change the opacity to 32%. So opacity is the amount of visibility that this layer has. And if you want to change it back to 100, you simply click on 0. So this is a quick visibility or opacity shortcut. All right. And one of the basic shortcuts is I button, which is the color picker. So say if I create another rectangle by clicking on R and creating this shape, and if I want to pick the color of this rectangle, I simply click on the rectangle that I want to change the color of, click on I. So this eyedropper or the ink dropper tool appears, and wherever I take it, it shows me which color it is. And if I want to duplicate it, I simply click on the color and it duplicates. Instead of going in and selecting and copying the color from here and then coming back and then pasting the color here. All right. So these are some of the shortcuts, quick shortcuts about in Figma. So these are really important if you want to speed your workflow. And some of the other shortcuts would be so that so one of the shortcuts is that if this is a group and I want to pick this particular layer, I click on Command or the Control key and click on that layer. So this layer would automatically be selected instead of the whole group. So this is another shortcut. Okay, so now moving on from the shortcuts, one of the most important things in Figma and every software are the plugins. So before I move on to plugins, are there any questions?
Nope.
Okay, okay. So now moving on to plugins. So plugins, so first of all, what are plugins? Plugin is a software add-on to make your workflow quicker by eliminating repetitive tasks. So you can access or download new plugins by going to this menu on the left-hand side, going down to plugins and managing plugins. These are all the plugins that I have installed. I'll move you through most of these one by one. If I click on manage plugins, just a second. this window would appear. So these are my installed plugins. All right, and if I click on plugins on the left hand side, it would take me to browsing all plugins. One great thing about Figma is that it has a software that you can use to create your own plugins. So it must be somewhere around. So yeah, on this left hand side here. So if you click on this, joining the beta. So this is a software in beta that you can use to create your own plugins and publish it here, so other people can use it. All right. So now if I click on browse all plugins, I can install plugins depending on my needs. All right. So it is really simple, and the plugins with Figma are really powerful. The plugins are not device dependent; they are account dependent. So every time you come in and log into Figma with any device, so your plugins would be saved on the cloud. So you don't have to install them again on each of the devices. So for example, these are the plugins I have installed, and it is really easy to install plugins. So if I click on it, it would be uninstalled. And if I click on it again, install, the plugin would be installed immediately. So let me show you some properties or some features of plugin. So for example, one of the plugins that I have is Get Waves. So what this does is it creates waves which you can use to depict data. So this is the complexity. So if you adjust this complexity, say this one, and if I click on create, it would create a shape. So if I have to create the shape without the use of a plugin, I would choose the pen tool, all right, and I would draw a point, then another point, curve it, another point, another point, another point. So this is a repetitive task that I don't want to do. So this is one of the plugins that helps in creating such shapes, and it can also be used to depict data on graphs. And if I now right click, go to plugins, get waves, and now if I increase the complexity and click on create, and if I hold, if I come onto the right hand side, hold my mouse and rotate it by holding down shift and take it to the top. All right. So this is, I have created two waves, and now if I delete this frame, click on this by holding shift and pick the eyedropper tool and click on this color. So this has a whole new feel to this page, and all I did was generate two shapes from a plugin, and this is what I have. All right. So plugins are really powerful, and if you want me to demonstrate more, so I will create another frame, right? And now if I create a shape, a circle, which is can be accessed by the shortcut O. So O looks like a circle, therefore it is the shortcut for a circle or an ellipse. Now if I hold down the shift key and drag with my mouse to the right, it will create a circle. And now if I want to insert an image, I don't need to go save an image and then come here, place image, and then place it onto here. So if I click on this shape, I right click on the plugin, go to plugins, click on this plugin that I just installed, Unsplash, all right, and this would appear. So if I want an architecture image, it would automatically place that image behind, inside the shape. So if I go to the plugins again, click on Unsplash, and then if I write a query, say a farm, and if I search, I have options to choose from these images. If I click on this image, it would be applied to any shape that I have in the background. So for example, if I right click on plugins, if I click on get waves and I click on create, and this is the shape that I have, I right click, go to plugins, unsplash, and then I click on animal, it would automatically insert the image. Just a second. Oh, wait a second. No, I didn't select the shape. So this is a shape. If I click on animal and I choose this image, it would automatically fit into the dimensions of that shape. All right. So Unsplash is a really powerful plugin, and another plugin that you would want to use when you are working with icons. So one of the most powerful plugins would be Material Design Icons that I already have installed. So instead of going to other sites to pick up icons for your project, you just click on this and you pick any icon from here. So this is an icon that I can use in my projects. All right. So Material Design Icons is a really powerful plugin for kind of icons. All right. So now let me demonstrate one or two more plugins now. Okay, just a second. So this plugin, find and replace color. So if I have these colors anywhere in my file, and I click on this, wait a second. I remember. Okay. So if I choose the color white, if I want to replace this color with another color, it would replace it on this frame. So it works only with this frame currently. All right. So yeah, this is something about plugins in Figma. These are really powerful.
So Karan, I just have a small question about one of
Okay.
the plugins. So where you're using these images,
Yeah.
now my question is, let's say if you're trying to design it on a professional level,
Okay.
and so these images that we are using, would it have any copyright issues, or is it okay if you're using it professionally, these images? Because
Okay.
I
Okay.
could see
So
that these has been added by certain people.
yeah, yeah. So the plugin that I'm using, Unsplash, this is an open source or royalty-free site also that you can go to search images. So this is a royalty-free and free site that you can take images from, and it is only installed as a plugin on Figma. Therefore, the images are also free to use.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, so now moving on to one of the important parts of UI design, that is a component. So a component is a repeatable or a reusable element that has one source or a parent. The child instances are directly linked to the parent and also the properties of the parent. All right. So for example, if I create a rectangle and then I create a component. All right. So the shortcut to create a component is Command, Option, and K, or Control Alt and K. Or you can simply click on this symbol here, Create Component. So this is a component now. So wait just a second.
Karan, I think you have muted yourself.
Hello.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry for that. Yeah.
Karan, I am audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
So I just want to ask one question. Can you go back to that circle thing?
The plugin
That
part.
image, yeah, that plugin image.
Okay.
So can we do zoom in and zoom out in the image of circle?
So this is not possible currently, at least in
Okay.
Figma. So
What if we want to zoom in or? Okay,
so
okay.
no, you cannot do that currently in Figma. You can do that in other software, but not this is a feature in pipeline, I guess. All right.
Okay. So we have to adjust image as it applied
You
by
have to,
Figma only. We cannot
yeah,
adjust
yeah,
image.
yeah. You have to create a shape that the image would be of the size of. Do you get me? So if you create a big shape, the image would fit in that shape. So let me demonstrate. So if I create a square, go right click, go on plugins and Unsplash, and click on architecture. It will pick a random image from architecture. So this is how big the image would be, and it would not. So if I keep the aspect ratio of the image to the shape, then it would fit perfectly. And if I increase it, then it would zoom in to the image directly. And if you double click on the image, you also have some properties on the left hand side that you can adjust right inside Figma instead of going to another software such as Lightroom or Photoshop. All right. So these are some quick adjustments that you can do to image.
Can you change the fill? Can you change the fill drop down?
Okay, fill. Okay. So if I change the fill, so currently I have selected this fill is set to image.
Not
Where-
image.
Okay.
If you change the fill drop, can you show me?
Your voice is breaking. I am not able to hear you properly.
Karan, we are saying if you can just go double click the image
Yeah.
and image, there's a fill option. Under image,
Yeah.
the fill drop down.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this
so
is.
you can always crop.
Yeah.
You can always crop, fit.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome. So now, as I was talking about components are repeatable elements that you can use throughout the project. So in every app that you see buttons or those are components. So those are used heavily across the app. So if I have created a component out of this, if I right click on this, and the convention says that there should be a separate page for components, which I have named symbols here. You can also name it components. And if you want to create a new page, come on to the left hand side, click on the plus icon, and you can add a new page and name it as well. So if I name it components, right, and if I go back to the second page, all right, so if I click on this, this is a component. So let me zoom in. Let me tell you something about components. So if you see this layer has filled squares, filled 4 squares. Okay, so this means this is a parent component. All right, and if I duplicate it by clicking on Control C, Control V, so this one has an empty rectangle. So this means this is a child component. So if this is a parent component and this is a child component. All right, so this has a filled square, so, and this one on the left hand side, as you can see, would be empty square. All right, so if I change anything in this rectangle or the parent object, it would automatically be reflected in the child wherever it is used. So I am creating multiple instances. If I go on to this parent component, click on fill and change the color, it would be replicated on these automatically. So this is a very good convention to be used when you are creating a project for UI design, so that you have one source of truth or one kind of a component here, and which is repeated across all your screens, so that if you edit anything here, it would automatically be edited on other screens as well. So I have created a component here, which is in the symbols panel, symbols page. All right. So one thing I would like to show you is all these headers or all these rectangles with text that you see here, these are all components which I created beforehand to illustrate. All right. And if I go on to the symbols page, and if I click on this, control click on this, right, I'm expanding it, right. If I click on this frame, as you can see that I've also picked up the color gray from here, so that I don't have to define the color every time. And now if I edit this color to anything, say I am editing it to white, red, and I'm editing the text color to white. So I don't have to worry about all the places that I've used it at. It would automatically change everywhere I have used it. So this is a very brief introduction of components. You can create components with shapes, with text, or also with groups. So this is what the power of component is. So if I click on Command Z or Control Z, and if I keep clicking on it, So it would resume back to its normal form, and all the instances that I've used it at would be replicated from this parent component. All right. Any questions from the component topic?
No.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to the next topic. That is prototyping. So prototyping is basically the linkage between your screens or your frames, as Figma has named it. So I have a very so if you click on the right side here and click on prototype, it would open a prototype window. So each time you click on any of the layers, there would be a circle indicator on the right side of it. If you click on it, drag it, there would be an arrow coming out of it. So if I zoom out and click on any of the screens there, all right, and I click on play, right, I have clicked on play, it would open up in a new window. So this is a target. If you click anywhere outside the target, Figma would tell you where the target is. So as I directed this target to another screen, if I click on this, it would lead me to this screen, right? So if I go back here, I have created a few targets beforehand. So if I click on here, I click on play. Okay, so I click on this link to colors frame layer. It would take me back to color basics. And since I have directed this back to, just a second. Just a second. Yeah, so I have linked it back to some of the frames. So if you click on this, there would be a circle indicator. If you click on the circle indicator and drag out the arrow and click on any of the screens or the frame, it would lead back to that frame and click on it. So for example, if I click on this screen and click on play, and I click on this source. So basically in prototyping, what you click on is the source, and where it gets taken to is the target. So if I click on the source, it would take me to this components page. And if I click on this components, which I have created a source and target link before, if I click on this, it would lead me back to the prototyping page. All right. And one last thing, that if you want any of these frames to if you want to save any of these frames to an image, you simply click on this frame name, click on design, go down, click on export Instagram post 3. So you can save it as a PNG, which you can select from here. You can also save it as a PDF. All right. So let me save it as a PNG. So let me save it as. So this is how it will be saved. All right. So this is an image, right? And if you want to export all these frames in the order that they are on the left hand side, you simply go to this menu to file and then export frames to PDF. It would ask you for a location. So let me choose one of the locations like download, event poster. It is downloaded as a PDF. So if I click on it, I have a PDF file from the frames that I have just created. All right. So yeah, I think I have covered all the topics that I wanted to discuss. If you have any questions, then you're free to ask.
So this whole concept that you have created, like the introduction, is it
Mhm.
possible that you can, share this with us somehow? Would we have to create an account on Figma to actually have you share
Yeah,
this with
if
us?
you want, yeah, if you want to collaborate, like
Mhm,
you want to edit everything, you would have to
mhm,
create an account. But if you only want to view this, I can
mhm.
share it with you from this share button on the right hand side, just like it works with Google Docs or Google Sheets. So if
Okay.
you have an account, you'll be able to edit it. All right. So if
Okay.
you
Got
don't
it.
have an account, you'll only be able to view it. Okay. So
Understood.
I can edit these properties from where can view or can edit. All right. And
Okay. So you
if I
can set
want to
the
share,
access.
yeah, if I want to share the prototype link, so I copy this link. All right.
Hmm.
I open the new tab. I paste this link there. Now you would have a similar, this is a view that you would have when you are not logged in, but the only difference would be that you would not be able to interact with any of these elements. Let me show you in
So
another
would
browser.
this be possible that, let's say, whatever you have created as of now,
Mm-hmm.
I can just import it in my account so that, let's say, I can, play around it and test it out on my end so that your work would not be edited,
Okay,
while I
okay.
can still work on the same situation.
Yeah, that can definitely happen. If I go to this menu
Hmm.
and if I go to file and if I save it as a Figma file, all right, and I
Okay.
send it to you then. And if then you would only have to, so if I save it as a Figma file, right,
Hmm.
event poster, and if I go to back to files, right, if I click on this icon, import,
Okay.
and if
Got it.
I then
So I would
click
have to
on,
do this particular procedure after getting the Figma file from you.
yeah. So if I import it here, so this file would be imported as is at the point that I have left it. And if you want to co-edit with me, I can share the file with you and you would be able to co-edit with me. All right.
Got it.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So this was it from this session. If you have any questions, then you can contact me on Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you feel is possible. All right. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. And I think I'll post this on YouTube as well so that you can view it afterwards as well. All right.
Great. Thank you, Varan.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Let's meet next week.
Thanks, Karan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you. It was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good
Bye
night.
bye. Good night.
Bye, Karan. Bye.
Bye bye.